Greetings. This is Caroline Staten with Transition US. Thank you so much for joining us today on this online event. Our principal aim is to provide practical support to the leaders of transition initiatives, those who are mulling over starting an initiative, and community leaders that are working on resilience-building efforts all over the country and in several countries within their communities. So grateful for our two guests today, and we'll tell you a bit about them and our wonderful teleseminar called Creating an Elders Community, How and Why. The people presenting this are Alexandra Hart and Sandra Scotchler. And Alexandra is a Transition Sebastopol elder. And for those of you that don't know where Transition Sebastopol is, it's in Northern California, north of San Francisco. And Alexandra conceived of the idea for what has become the Elders Salon. And subsequent satellite events have also occurred from this work. In Sebastopol in early 2010, for example, Alexandra, a retired fiber artist and author of AHP Perspective, members magazine for the Association of Humanistic Psychology. She also has over 30 years of experience in many local rituals, council circles, etc. Well, in 2010, Alexandra put together a wonderful event, which I know you'll be talking about, Alexandra, sort of that fashion show, which was a big hit in Sebastopol. And Sandra Scotchler, she's an MFT, has been drawn to the healing arts since childhood. She values the path of the wounded healer, and her practices have been as an RN, a body therapist, and family therapist. And becoming an elder at this time calls her to join with others who care deeply about the earth and want to collaborate in bringing the needed transformation. So Alexandra and Sandra, thank you so much for presenting today on the Elders community. And I know we'll hear from you for about 40 minutes or so. We'll take some questions, and I know you'll be doing a few polls and hearing from some of the men in the Elder Salon group too. So I'm going to turn it over to you two to take us on this journey. So thank you so much. Alexandra?
Thank you, Caroline. That's lovely of you to give us such a nice introduction. I will correct, I'm not the author of the perspective, I was the editor. But it was the membership magazine for the Association for Humanistic Psychology. Anyway, I am really happy to be working with elders as much as I have now been privileged to do here in Sebastopol. And Sandy, or Sandra, but I call her Sandy, and that's going to be easier for me, has been a member of our group for the 4 years that we have now been in process. And she's also leading, along with David Lucky Goff, the Becoming Change venue, which I will tell you about in a minute. That's one of our spin-offs. And Lucky was my co-initiator of the salon and all of these elder events that we do. He has something to do with. So we recently became interested in making a kind of mission statement. Well, what are we? And what is an elder's salon or an elder's branch of transition? So what we came up with here is ensuring community growth, connection, and resiliency by serving elder awareness and collective wisdom during these times of cultural and earth transitions. So maybe, Sandy, you'd like to say hello so people know your voice.
Oh, thanks. Hi, and thank you, Caroline, for that wonderful introduction. I'm very grateful and excited to be here today.
So, Alexandra again, basically, our intention was to create a means of engendering resilient community of older people who have transition movement values at heart and who learn to see themselves anew as individually and collectively valuable to the health of transition in general and to the larger community as a whole. So I'll tell you a bit about how it started out. Lucky and I wanted to know something more about my generation. I'm now 74, and at the time I must have been 70, since we've been going for 4 years. And I realized I was going through what a lot of people do at about that period of life, a kind of life review, what I had done and what my bucket list might be, and so on, was kind of going through my head, and what I had energy to do still, what I wanted to contribute still. And I realized that I was part of the generation that had been through the 60s and 70s as a young and forming person, young adult, and being through that time where freedom and values of saving our planet, the whole ecological and environmental movements were beginning, and the civil rights and women's movement and gay rights and so on. There was all of this emphasis on freedom, and I was right in the middle of it. I was in San Francisco, Bay Area culture, writing a book about the fiber art and folk art of that period of time, which became a kind of iconic book. And so I really connect to those times, and I thought, well, all of those people are now in their 60s and 70s in their age, and I want to know what they're doing, what my generation is about. So I thought that was my main focus. I wasn't so sure that I was one of those old people. And what we found out once we got started is that nobody thought they were one of those old people. They came into this room, there are all these other gray heads, and they thought, well, we'll see. And, of course, we have come around to quite a different understanding of that now, and beginning to, very quickly to really value what all these other gray heads had to contribute. So we happen to have the good fortune, I'll say, of having a co-housing, a common house available to us because Lucky lives in co-housing. And that meant that we were able to use that space as a free space. So we have never had to charge anything for our events that we have there. And that's been one of the reasons that we've been quite successful, I believe, is that people come. It doesn't have anything to do with whether you've got money to pay for it or what your past background is. It never matters who you've been, what you've done in the past. It's who you are right now and what you can bring of your own authenticity to the group that has been the real value. And it was very quick that we began to understand that that was the real heart of the group, of what we were doing. Lucky is a developmental psychologist, and he was interested, his beginning point of view was he was interested in discovering what elders have to, how their developmental process makes a difference. And just one moment.
Yeah.
We hear your breath, so if you just move the phone down.
Thank you.
So as he was looking at things from a developmental point of view, he was also familiar with leading groups. I'd been leading groups in the community women's groups, councils, co-housing things, and he had been doing men's groups and psychologically oriented groups, and we brought what we knew about that process to it. But I'm not sure that is the important piece. I don't think you need to have a history background in either therapy or group facilitation, as long as you're willing and able to be very egalitarian, to listen to all the voices, to have lots of respect. And we do have some more facilitation guidelines that we'll talk about later.
Can I jump in there, please? Yeah, I just want to echo that point. For those who may be interested in starting their own elders group, that I, as a retired psychotherapist, found my way through a friend to the initial elder salon about 4 years ago, and I was so taken with the quality of people sharing deep, important things. And this was not geared at all as a psychotherapeutic entity. It was something that caught fire with a lot of us, especially over time, by virtue of some of the things we're going to be talking about. So I just wanted to underline that we both, I think, agree that it's the quality of what elders have within them already that has been the sort of magic spark that's helped our community to really come together. So.
Yes, it's been the willingness to allow ourselves to be drawn out and to become more ourselves, more authentic. That ability to, or willingness to share a little deeper when we got to get to know each other a little better. So the group has grown without our really trying to do anything about it. We started with just a monthly salon, and we had 45 people or something come to the first one, and normally it's down to about 20 to 30 people in a usual evening salon. So we still do the monthly salon. And then we have a weekly drop-in group at a local coffee house, and that's from like 3:30 to 6 once a week. And we have a radio show, which is a 2-hour show on a local community station that's 2 hours once a month. And we have another group that is managed just a little bit differently that Sandy and Lucky run. Maybe you can tell us something about that, Sandy, about Becoming Change.
Okay, great. It was a spin-off, basically, from the larger elder salon, which usually runs in attendance, maybe you said, Zan, about 30 or more people. And the spin-off group was a way to kind of concentrate our focus on being a learning community. And that phrase was new to me. I have learned a lot from Lucky Goff about it. And in fact, he elaborates a lot about learning communities in his book that's recently out called Embracing Life Toward a Psychology of Interdependence, book that's had a really big impact on me. And in this learning community that we formed more clearly and more succinctly, I believe, in Becoming Change, we're really looking at living our lives from the inside out and growing into the challenges of these times, learning to forge the kind of trust and bondedness between us that can help us go through these times and, really show up on the planet for each other and others in a more advanced way, we hope.
Yes, we've identified some of what we believe the essential elements are. Having everything be free of charge, it has been very valuable, as I said. Learning is emphasized, and that's especially noted in that learning community of Becoming Change, although I have to say the general quality of all of the venues has to do with that. community is important, and community resilience is a really big piece of what we intend and what seems to be happening. It really seems to be working. And Sandy has just reminded me that we intend and would be helped by having a poll of the people who are on the call now about how many people are what age groups. And Caroline will help us with that. But we have three age group situations here. One would be if you're 70 or older, you can press 1 on your keypad. If you are between 55 and 69, you can press 2. And if you're under 55, press 3. Caroline, do you have anything to add there?
No, you did that perfectly. And again, so press 1 on your phone keypad, if you can, if that's how you got onto this call. And so if you're 70 or over, you press 1. If you're, was it 55 to 69, I believe, Alexandra?
Yes.
Press 2. And if you're younger than that, press 3. And what we have, I think the results are in. We have 21% of the people on the call pressed 1, so they're over 70. 55% pressed 2, so they're 55 to 69. And 11% are younger than that. So that's the makeup of the people on the call today.
Great, that's helpful. I think that the 55 to 69 age group is the largest population in the salon's population as well. And we go up. When we started out, there were people from their 40s to their late 80s. And now it seems to be settling in to be mostly 50s and to mid-70s or early 80s, 50s to early 80s. Just to give you a sense, what we put out was baby boomers on up. And considering that baby boomers are coming to be such a large portion of our general population, and people of that age, especially that 55 to 75, say, age, are often retired, and at least 65 on tend to be more often retired. So they have time and they have energy. They still want to give back, and that's a lot of why people are interested in transition. Also, coming through the Elder Salon, they get interested in other aspects of transition as well. So I was saying some of what the important elements are, and free learning, community, the creation of community where people are caring about one another and caring then about their environment, about their community, and the planet in general. That seems to be a growing aspect of growing older, one of the developmental pieces that we've discovered. And then as we're survivors, because we've all, we don't get to be this age without having had many losses, hardships, grief, and we have come to know that grief and praise are on a continuum, and that grief and sharing our grief brings us right to that celebration of life and having life, and then caring for one another and giving back. So we also have discovered that one of our highest gifts that we can give one another is just to show up and be authentically ourselves.
I'd like to share an anecdote about that. Thank you, Zan. that was an early on salon circle where I recall getting, chills up my spine as the question was asked, for a change, what do you like about growing older? And as Lucky and Zan, facilitated this, around this large circle was all these answers. And this is a very mixed group of men and women who essentially had a story that was very similar, that as they were entering their 60s, a lot of them, and their 70s, they were finding that they liked the person they were. And this kind of authenticity, this kind of growing into ourselves, minus a lot of the roles that have so dictated our personality and how we identify ourselves, was astonishing that we all recognized that in each other. So this health and time that this older generation, just like Zan was describing, I think has led to this kind of opening where that's what we really have to give ourselves, each other, and the larger world, is our authentic selves, more than we were able to in our younger years. So that was a very big question to ask, and big results came from it.
I remember that night very well. There was so much excitement. The room was just twittering with this kind of, ooh! And one of the things that does, that it has done for many of us, is make us realize that we are happier with ourselves, more contented, and that we're all right as we are. And we've come, many of us, to accept that. I've seen a great deal of growth in virtually everyone, certainly in myself. My own coming to be just one with everybody instead of doing something for these people, has been a really big piece for me. And I've loved that. I think I'll move on a little bit now to some of our what our early agendas were. That was a good lead-in. We often start from a good question. For instance, here's one we haven't done in the salon, but I think it came up in the Becoming Change group. What are my edges at this time? And a couple of clarifying questions. What if the way we are together is, in fact, a new paradigm for an old tradition, sitting in circle to honor connectedness of the people, the earth, and the mystery beyond? What if the synergy that comes from such communities is the alternate energy source that life most needs? What if this is why life has brought so many older folks together at this time on the earth? Some of our other agendas earlier, I think our first one, we just put up pieces of newsprint on the wall with a lot of different topics and gave people what I call dot technology, different colored dots to indicate that these were the ones they were most interested in, and these were ones they were sort of interested in. And then when we looked at all of those dots, we could tell what the main interest of the group was. And in doing a transition elders group in your area, you'll need to find out what your group is interested in, because it may not be the same thing that ours has been interested in. Each group is going to have its own personality, and the main thing with I think I can generalize about elders to this extent, that they don't want to be told what to do or what they should be interested in. They would like to have to contribute to it themselves and would like to have a say in it. And you can trust your elders to be clear when you draw them out. So that was our first one, and the term elder insurgency came up at that one. And we talked also about Theodore Roszak's book, The Longevity Revolution. Well, that's not the name of the book. It's Growing an Elder Culture, I believe. No, that's not quite it either. But anyway, he talks about the longevity revolution in that book, And those were a couple of the directions we thought it might go in. Elder insurgency we used as a name for our informal group for a while, and it makes us laugh, but it didn't really mean anything beyond that, I don't think. We asked the question, is creating a compassionate society a part of this, and what does that mean to you? Then we had some on making a difference or giving back. This was in 2010 that we did that the first time, and then just recently, our last salon, Diane Monroe and Jeff Rooney, who I think will be on the call in a little bit here, they did another one about what are your gifts, and I realized how far we had come in those 4 years from that first one. That the first time around, it was a much shallower report. And then another one that was of interest was a group on loss and needs and how loss brings gifts in its wake. I think the one that instigated the excitement that we were talking about a minute ago was what changes have made you who you are now. Then had some on self-initiation and wisdom. Yes, back to that grief, compassion, and praise, and exploration of that. Martine Prechtel says, when you grieve the thing you lost, it means praise. And when you praise the thing you lost, it means grief. And that took us a while to wrap our heads around, but we did come to see how that works. That grief and praise are the same word, actually, in the Mayan language. So, Sandy, maybe you can talk some more about learning community, because
sure. Yes, that's kind of the element that as a retired family therapist I was really drawn to, that the salon was already developing this. And as we spoke of earlier, David Lucky Goff had, as a psychologist, really served in a lot of communities in this capacity to develop learning communities. Well, I didn't quite know what it was. I was used to groups with a facilitator and some common purpose and a handful of people. And frankly, the groups that I had been drawn to were largely female, simply because I was drawn to a lot of women's growth and development, being one myself. And what I have found in the salon and in the way that Lucky has taught me about learning community is that it's wide open. It is so open to both genders, and it's working out just all by itself that our venues seem to draw an equal balance of men and women. I don't know if that's across the board happened in other places, but it's happened here. And that intrigued me because I really needed to hear more of the male input, which we're going to actually have some of our male members do here shortly. But the openness of a learning community style is something I'd like to speak to and share about. What I see that it does is the facilitators, rather than moving discussion in any certain way, they will maybe kick us off with a question or a theme area, but the whole group is ultimately responsible for how and what direction the discussion takes and the exploration. And in turning over this responsibility, Zan and Lucky have been particularly talented, I think, at doing that, Caroline, and so I think we're real lucky to have them in this community. And I do think that people with an open mind and heart can duplicate a community like this, but that openness is a key quality, not coming in with any preset idea about how they wanted to see the community develop, but truly turning over that responsibility to the group as a whole, as Zan has been talking about. And then the piece that I am just thrilled about in my own development and in what I see in others is this kind of expanded consciousness that comes from risking openness. In other words, instead of diving into what we know, we dive into what we don't know or what we don't want to know. We look at both sides of things. We look a lot at some of the baggage we still carry in our lives as elders, about parts of ourselves we don't feel good about. So it's, again, I want to underscore, it's not a therapeutic goal here, but merely to kind of let bubble up inside of each of us whatever needs review. And by sharing and gaining trust in our little community and our bigger communities, we're able to then strengthen ourselves and surprise ourselves at what we're able to hold that's larger than what we were previously able to hold. The example that I keep finding come up is learning about paradox, that two opposing things, especially two opposing sets of feelings, can exist in me simultaneously. And instead of going into the duality mode of thinking, which I think predominates in our Western culture, it's taught me this kind of uncomfortable edge to work. Oh, what if this darkness needs to be side by side with that lightness? And that deepens the whole thing, whether it's in an individual or in the collective level. And this thrills me to my toes because it feels like it may well be part of an evolutionary trend for us humans, is to encompass more of opposites and to be more and more comfortable in our groups with the tension that arises, to embrace both the delight we have as being peers and supportive elders to each other, but also our tensions internally and among each other, to use them. And again, I have to say the learning I've gotten from working with Lucky and our Becoming Change in a Changing World group has been really very, very important for me. So I'm very grateful.
That is essentially becoming more paradoxical in one's thinking, and that learning to appreciate paradox and to get it is similar to appreciating difference. And that's another of the elder developmental possibilities that we've identified, which is being intrigued is by difference, not just tolerating difference, being interested in it, but really intrigued by it and finding out what it is about this person who's so different from you that makes them so and sharing that back and forth makes a lot of possibility for growth. I'm thinking that we should find out now another poll. I would like to know, so you can press 1 on your keypad if you're in a transition-related elders group now. Press 2 if you're on the call and are in the Sebastopol group. And press 3 if you are considering beginning one in your locale.
Will you go over those one more time, Alexandra?
Sure. 1 if you're in a transition-related elders group. 2 if you're in the Sebastopol group, elders group. And 3 if you're considering beginning one in your area.
And it seems to me maybe there's another category because we're not getting as many people pressing the buttons. So I'm wondering if people that none of those were quite right, the right category for, if you want to press 4.
Yeah, if they're just on the call because they're interested in finding out what it's about.
Well, that captured a few more people. So let's see what we have. So your first, only one person pressed 1, Alexandra, and just 2 people pressed 2. And then we go, I'll give you percentages for the next. 49% of the people on the call pressed 3, so they're interested in starting one. That was number 3, I believe, correct?
Great. Mm-hmm.
And 28% are, I guess, finding out more.
Okay. Well, that's very exciting to me that there are that many people interested in starting something, because I think that it's possible that elders will really have something big to offer in these coming years of change, of transition. Yes. Okay, well, let us go back now to who is, I was going to say who is actually part of these. I'll do just a little bit of that, and then we'll ask our men from the elders. There've got to be at least two of them, because we use the Sebastopol Transition Google mail list system, and I don't know whether your local transition initiative has that kind of mail list system, but that's made it very easy for us to get word out. We have 161 members in our announcing list and 55 in our discussion list, and that's out of 850 Transition Sebastopol members. Basically, people are self-selected. I talked about their ages, and I think we can go on and see if we can get, is it Tryman and Gore, maybe Jeff? If those people are on the call, if any of them are interested in chiming in now and telling us something about what they get from the salon and why they come.
So they could press 1 on the keypad so I can find you amidst.
Yes. Okay.
There we go. So we're going to start with. We have all three men that you mentioned might be on the call,
great.
And we'll start with Tryman. Go ahead.
Hi. I've been in the Elder Salon now for not quite 4 years, and was invited by Lucky to join, and have really had quite an incredible experience of coming actually to fully embrace who I am as a person, and having been able to speak and be witnessed, I actually began to notice that who I was, and that really was brought forth through the interaction of the community of elders. Much of what I felt going into that as a person, I didn't know what an elder was. I was felt as, most people getting older, I didn't have a community of elders. I'd never even heard of one. The only experience I had come from was like in the 80s in the men's movement with Robert Bly, and I could sense what the value of an elder was. And having been in the community and shared it, I live about 30 miles from Sebastopol in Sonoma, and have talked with people here, and they're really curious and wanting to start one. And so I'm looking to work with the transitions in Sonoma to see if that's a possibility here. One of the things I wanted to mention too, because you mentioned the Cows radios, Ann, and I think that would be a great resource for people to be able to check in on their computer, as there's a lot of rich material there for people to check in and to see what growing in elder culture is about. And I'll stop there.
To respond to that last piece about where to find the radio shows, we do have all of our past radio shows where you can stream them directly from your computer at elderculture.com. And the name of the radio show is Growing in Elder Culture.
Wonderful. Did you want to hear from the other two gentlemen there? All right. Gore, you're next. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, thanks for having this conference. I want to say that when I began attending the Elder Salon, I was very wary. First of all, I didn't even want to associate myself with people who are older. I had never hung with people who were my own age. I would always hang out with people who were younger. So the first time I was there, it was a great big gulp of realizing, oh my God, I am one of these people. This is who I am. I had no intention of continuing. I don't want to, hang with a bunch of old people and so forth. And I've been continuing for all these years because I can't come up with a better thing to do with the evenings that I attend. I can't think of a pub that I could go to and I could really speak my truth and have other people actually paying attention, unlike a barkeep who's just humoring me, and actually say my fill. It's been a real growth experience for me in terms of becoming more of a social being, because I've been quite a loner in my life. And so I've been learning a lot about my social self, or my antisocial self as well. The result is I do feel a lot better about being the age I am. And a part of that is making, as we have, a distinction between an old person and an elder. And we've talked about this a number of times, that to be an elder takes a little bit more than just growing old. It's a conscious path, and it's a path of consciousness. And I'm really proud, to be on it. I think one of the things that elders can give to their community, transition included, is it's a time of life where we're learning how to accept things as they are, and even through failures. It was mentioned before in this call, but to get to this age, you're bound to have had failures. And what we can contribute to younger people is showing that failures do not necessarily mean defeat. They don't mean that you've lost, and they're nothing to be ashamed of. And I remember in my younger years, every failure that I had, I took as a foretelling that I was just not going to make it. But here are all these people who have had their failures and suffered their griefs, and they've still survived, and they're still alive. That was kind of astounding. I have another thing. I am a poet, and have longed for a community that I could be of service to as a poet. And I found that in our meetings, that I have a regular place where I can read my poetry and people enjoy it. And so that's something that community gives to an artist, especially, that I didn't have before. And we've spoken a little bit about baby boomers and being of an age of the 60s and where we are now. And I keep seeing that the 60s are not finished. They never were finished. And we have an opportunity to bring that consciousness back again, and bring that to people who weren't there, bring it again to their attention. And in some ways, this time is very appropriate because, in a way, we are seeing all the things that we warned against in the 60s. They're now reality.
That's right.
We were in the 60s foolish, we were naive, but we were absolutely right. And the evidence is plain today. So there's a political and economic and ecological relevance now to what we started way back then. Okay, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Gore.
Wonderful. And we have Jeff too.
Good.
Jeff, why don't you go ahead?
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, can you speak up a bit?
Yes. I don't have the greatest reception here. I hope it carries okay.
Oh, it's pretty poor, so maybe keep your comment pretty brief and speak up loudly.
Hello?
There, yep, go ahead.
Oops. I think we lost him. Nope, we can't hear you, Jeff.
So,
hello?
Oh, there we go. Go ahead. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. I apologize. I don't have the best reception from my phone. But firstly, I wanted to just thank Sandy and Alexander for giving a very, very great rendition of what I've experienced with the salon and also becoming change myself. I'm actually 58 years old, and I've been attending 2 years. And I sort of came to it already sort of being bonded with a lot of the values of a transition town. I'd been following the genesis of it. We moved from San Antonio to Sebastopol in part to be close to the development of transition town and similar things going on in this area. And for myself, one of the things that the salon has been really beneficial to me as I sort of step into this elder period of my life is that I was deeply grieving over many things that I see going on in the world and in our culture. And I was in pretty deep need of metabolizing that grief. And I found the salon was a really good landing point to begin that process. And I think through that I've kind of grown in ways that were unforeseen in terms of being able to deal more flexibly with the changes that are coming down and that we see unfolding in front of us. And I personally feel like we're in a period where it's like all hands on deck, that every generation is going to contribute what needs to be contributed to change the course that we're on globally and in our society. So in that context, to me, everyone has already addressed this to one degree or another, but like the elders, I believe, have much to offer. It's not dark yet, as Bob Dylan says. When you're an elder, there's still much to be done. But I think in terms of like looking at a vibrant community, a thriving community, a resilient community, it's an intergenerational process where I believe elders, youngers, people in between are all going to have a very crucial role to play as things develop. And I think Transition Town, the transition movement, is a wonderful thing on the scene today. I was really pleased to see Rob Hopkins speak recently, and I just think it's a wonderful platform for a lot of the changes that need to occur as things unfold. With the kind of crises we see, these different elements of crises that we are coping with. So I just wanted to say that for myself, it's been a wonderful way to kind of deal with this age I'm moving into, and also this space where I want to be contributing on a much wider level what's sort of emerging in my life at this point.
Wow, Jeff, thanks. I'm glad we were able to hear you. And I wanted to just also point out that we're getting close to the top of the hour. We usually run until about 15 after. But I'm wondering, Alexandra and Sandra, if you're about ready to move into questions or comments and that sort of thing.
Yes, what I'd like to say is that I do have some notes I could share a little bit more on the how. On the other hand, I am really more interested in finding the questions, and so there might be responses to questions that come from that section. And we will be creating a handbook that will have some guidelines in it, and I will be able to create a digital copy that I can send out to people who are on the call who want to receive it. So we'll ask that question of who wants to receive that after we have taken some of the questions from people. So I'm really happy to hear from some of you.
So press 1 on your keypad if you have a question or a comment. And one of the questions I could imagine people might ask is, how do you start one? So I think you'll be able to get into that anyway. We'll start with Susan Jordan. Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, thank you. This has been very enlightening. I'm in a transition movement in Joshua Tree, California, and I was wondering if the salon has an action arm. Do you, as a group, take action, do something in the community, or is it an internal personal growth process solely?
You want to say something, Caroline?
No, I think she's asking about the Elder Salon.
Yes. Okay. Well, we an example of something that we did do was the transition style event that Caroline mentioned in the beginning. We had a desire to connect with young people, and I don't know that we have found the right way to do it, but this was an effort in that direction. We paired people who are at least 40 years of age in difference from one another, an elder and a younger, and they created some kind of look out of their closets. They visited. It gave them something to do while they were getting to know each other over a period of a couple of months. And they'd go to each other's homes and look in their closets, or maybe go to a recycle shop, a thrift shop, or something like that, and create some kind of a look. And then we had a fashion show where the couples came down a red carpet and spoke a little bit about what their experience was. And we raised a little bit of money for transition with it. So that was one thing. And then another thing was also related to youth. We worked with a permaculture group, had a school for young people, and became available to these young people as kind of what they called anchors. Had a few meetings with them. It's still something that is in process, but is a little bit slow getting started. But the thing that seems to be the biggest answer to that question is that the inner work and growing ourselves seems to need to have happened. That's what we mainly do in our groups, what we mainly want, and that our best action is being ourselves, or I forget the term we use, Andy.
Authentic?
No. Anyway, being ourselves is really when we influence others, when we can really be authentic and be like that. So a lot of people do have other actions and activities that they find some support from the group in discussing it, but so far we haven't found a particular thing we wanted to take on. It may happen.
I'll just add to that, Susan, the questioner, that in my experience, we have continually explored, is it activist or not to be growing in the way we're growing? And it's an ongoing question. Some of us have been more appropriately for ourselves oriented to actions, demonstrations, creating events in the community. Others of us have been quieter in that fashion externally. What I am finding is that I can't tell where one stops and the other starts anymore. As I grow in my awareness I act differently in my home. I raise more vegetables. Lots of things kind of pop out of the internal growth that you're speaking of.
I remember that word. It's exemplifying is that word. And I think that it would be very valuable to any working group to have members of that group be from that older generation, and to listen and feel what it is they bring. I think that's a way you can take advantage of that desire to have, for all of us to have meaning in our lives and to give back.
Let's take some more questions. We have several people waiting. Cecile Andrews, go ahead.
Yeah, when you present this to the community, it's not easy to explain transition anyway. So how do you present it as being part of transition?
Well, we started. Yes.
I mean, does it make sense
in terms
of, in terms of linking it to the public? I mean, transition may understand, but are you trying to reach out to the public, and how do you link the idea of transition with the idea of being an elder?
Right. Well, we started by announcing through our local transition list, which ensured that those people were already on board with transition values. And then I have a fairly large circle of friends and acquaintances and so on, and I invited those people, and they came, and then it spread word of mouth. We have not really made an effort to grow. It has happened on its own. And the transition values are just seem to be imbued in the whole Gestalt because of the way it started. Although I would say also that you can start not necessarily by having a couple of people, the hosts being experienced in the way that we were, but you could start by doing that informal coffee house gathering and just talk and see where people want to go, see what the group consensus is and how to go forward.
Thank you.
David Weintraub, go ahead.
Hi there. I'm from Hendersonville, North Carolina, and we do have an elders project in our community. It's called the Elder Wisdom Project, and I guess it's a bit different than what has been discussed. The focus of it is to locate and communicate with the elders of this community. And by elders, we're talking about the longtime residents of there's people who go back 7-8 generations in Hendersonville who are here since the Revolutionary War and have connected to the land and understand that prosperity comes from the ground, not from Walmart and from Cisco trucks, and have a great story to tell about how they live their lives in a sustainable way. So what we've created is an oral history project where we sit down and interview them, and mostly using video cameras and sometimes audio if they're shy. And then that's led to what we hope it will lead to is a documentary film, which is in progress right now. It's led to some sustainability workshops where the elders come and talk about what they've done, like the use of water rams, the old-timey way of growing food, of making molasses, things like that. And it's also led to some public programs of just discussions about where we're headed. We had Nicole Foss here, luckily, a couple of weeks ago, and we had Nicole speak, and of course she has a scary message to say. And then we had our elders come talk about how not so long ago in our community, people lived their lives not really concerned about money because they had enough to eat. And if they needed something, then they just traded the food that they had for something that they needed. So that's a quick 25-cent tour of what we're doing. And our website is saveculture.org, saveculture.org, which describes some of the work that we're doing.
Wonderful.
That sounds great. Yeah, that sounds like it's the an effect that could come from what we've been doing, the kind of activities that we might get called upon to do along with others. What we are doing is more encouraging elders to understand themselves and see, acknowledge themselves, give recognition to their stage of life. Sandy?
Yes, and this, David, from what you've shared, strikes me as so true about what can happen is that an elder's kind of circle of any sort can start and then actually draw people to the transitions movement through being an elder's circle, and likewise transitions sponsoring an elder circle can help those elders find each other. So it seems to me like the cross-fertilization can only grow.
Wonderful. We have a few more questions, and we have about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
John Guffey, I'm wondering, you've had your hand up. I wonder if that was a are you wanting to make a comment or question?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
And thank you. I am a teacher, and I work with high school students in Estes Park, Colorado. I'm also 62, and so I'm drawn to this. I'm very committed to the transition movement, but I come to this from the youth perspective and wanting to know if young people, and I really enjoyed hearing the example of the fashion show, and I would like, I guess, more examples of how teenagers could possibly reach out to elders. I'm teaching a class called Wisdom of the Elders, and we're going to be going to Pine Ridge Reservation and talking to elders there, but more important is how we can transform our little school, which is a boarding school, into a place where elders and young people work together. And so it's like bridging. Estes Park is an elderly community. It's a retirement center, and I don't know if we have a salon here, but I'm certainly going to look into that and, if necessary, start something. But to what extent can we kind of lean into that group of sage folks in the community to be partners with our students in education that's transitional? Because I think there's a real urgency in this work, and that we don't necessarily want to just do this for our own welfare, that the society needs this, and schools are a vehicle for maybe bringing this change forward. And so thoughts on how you feel like bridging from elders who want to make a difference and want to be heard and have a lot to share into the context of young people who maybe haven't gotten that into their heads yet, that this is a source, this is a curriculum that we haven't tapped, and that
I'd
would
like
love
to
pursue
respond.
it.
Yeah, I'd like to respond, John, and thank you for those really great points. I learned in the community through one of the other members of a local school need for reading tutors for it was elementary school children, and that's how I became a volunteer doing that. So there's the references that elders can offer each other about ways to contribute individually. I think our salon continually tries to look at what our youth needs around and how we can interface with that. The programs that Zan mentioned are just a couple of examples, but that's ever in our mind too. And I agree with you, both high school and college age young people are just so hungry for the kind of connection that elders often can give.
and I'd like to respond too, in that I believe that if you get an elders salon going, then it'll be easy to find elders to respond to any inquiries. And inquiries coming from the young people, they already having generated some kind of interest is helpful. I would also point you toward a group that, well, this is the ongoing part of the youth program, the permaculture group that we have been working with some, called Weaving Earth. That's their new name, and I'll bet you could put Weaving Earth Santa Rosa, California into a Google and come up with their website or contact numbers, and they work with the young people, and those people are actively looking for elders. You might be interested in what their program is to help you with your teen program.
Cool. Thank you.
And let's go to another question. Tryman, you have your hand up again. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was really taken by the idea of what the Elders Salon does, in a sense. For me, it's been an initiation process, and I have now become an elder. I was an older person, and am now taken on myself, basically, and I can handle and keep myself under almost all situations. And I take that out into the community, not as an older person, but now as an elder. And that really does, I can sense in myself how different I am being in my community in Sonoma, and because I'm much more comfortable being who I am than I used to be, and consequently it's that actually permeates into my community. And that's what I'm looking, what will actually be a real powerful force, I think, as we go along in the next number of years. And I have a lot of questions of how to start one, of course, in Sonoma. And it's really at the beginning of this process, and it still has a lot of quirks and stuff, trying to get people together because my circle isn't as large, but I am finding other circles. It seems to have a life of its own once it starts to begin, and I think it just kind of naturally takes off because people are hungry for it.
Thank you. And I wanted to also we've got about 6 minutes left. We have 4 people with hands up, and just turning it back over to Sandra and Alexandra to either respond or we'll move on to the next question.
Should we take another question? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's take another question, and that might be all we can fit in here. I'm not sure, because we did want to end with a poem. Actually, we could ask Tryman to do that.
Well, we're not quite at that stage yet, right? We're
okay, right.
But Julie Carta, go ahead.
Hi. I was with the initiating group in Omaha in 2009, and I moved to Bend about 1.5 years ago, and I work with the aging population in cognitive therapy. And one of the things I'm very interested in doing and hearing you talk about, if you can, is if any of your salons have ever led to pairing a time bank with the elder community and the youth.
I've been really interested in a time bank, and we have not yet gotten something that I've been able to get my teeth into or hands on in this local. There have been some efforts, and so far I don't know that there's something that's really viable. But I think it's a really good idea, and I would love to see something happen here.
Rains?
Anyway, just expressing appreciation, Alexander, for your work, and encouraging all of us to use whatever took us to transition that edge of community organizing or whatever background to make sure we're not just talking to each other, but using whatever groups, elders or other groups, to find new ways of helping people see each other and think differently about the challenges in front of them.
Well, good, and we're just in time here, and we'll get a poem, correct?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Tryman, if you're still on, would you like to recite the Dakini Speaks, or shall I read it?
I can, I would be glad to recite it.
Great.
You got me. Okay. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let us grieve our losses fully, like ripe human beings. But please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed, as if life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us, and she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel, but she is only wild, and her compassion, exquisitely precise, brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth. She strips away the unreal to show us the real. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway. Cost is too high. We're not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything to what cannot be lost. Let us dance the wild dance of no hope.
Thank you.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thank you, Alexandra and Sandra, for bringing this information to us. I definitely appreciate it, and we'll be sending out something to all of you, the guide.
It will have more nuts and bolts.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And just wanted to remind people we really could use your financial support to offer these, so please do go to transitionus.org and give a donation if you can, and keep doing your wonderful, wonderful work in the world, and have an amazing, heartwarming holiday, everyone. Till next time, goodbye.